Avtar Meher Baba ki jai. Uh, you can start with the couplets, Ashok ji.
Yeah, definitely. Avtar Meher Baba ki Jai, three of Meher Baba's favorite couplets of Hafiz, a mystical Persian poet. Befitting a fortunate slave, carry out every command of the master without any question of why and what. About what you hear from the master, never say it is wrong because, my dear, the fault lies in your own incapacity to understand him. I am slave of the master who has released me from ignorance. Whatever my master does is of the highest benefit to all concerned. Hafiz. Avtar Meher Baba ki Jai.
Jai Baba. So, with that, let's get to where we were on the journey with nothing and everything. We are on the physical page 30. And in fact, Sunday, we had a beautiful discussion led by Ashok. So we actually didn't read this. We talked about the Nirvana and Nirvikalpa Samadhi. And by the way, on that note, we still need those slides shared out on the teams and so that people can contribute. Maybe it's already happening offline, but then uh, in a way where everybody can see it and also contribute if they want to. So please keep that in mind, Ashok, and then
Yes,
probably put it out.
I will put it out. And if you will permit me some time, I just wanted to also add that the Meher Baba journals, that's 4.4, it is also there on the Teams folder, has got a very good article on Nirvana, Nirvikalpa Samadhi, and Moksha. And it explains beautifully the differences. It is already there in our Meher Baba Awakens folder.
Okay, so what's that again? Is there a slide deck? What did you say?
It's a
It's
word
what?
file, but it beautifully explains.
Ward Park.
Oh, okay. It's a Ward Parks Word doc.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
No, Mamaji, I would correct that. It is, I think, written at the time of Baba by uh, Abdul Ghani, Dr. Abdul Ghani. It is there
Okay.
in
Okay.
the Meher Baba Journals 4.4. It is there. It is taken from uh, the
Oh,
MPC
it's from
website.
so it's basically uh, from the journal. Probably it was serialized, or maybe how many pages? Is it just
One or
one
two,
extract from?
2 pages.
Okay. Fine.
Time
Thank
for
you. That's a good input.
we read at
So
the
when
end,
you
or
so can you share those links on Telegram so that everybody
I will.
knows what's going on? Yeah.
Sure.
So two things. One is three things. I think the Word doc you worked as input, right? Second,
Yes.
the slide deck that Sunil put together bases that. And the
Yes.
third is what you're saying is reference material from Abdul Ghani. So send out three links. And can you put all these three probably in which folder should we put it? Should we create a research folder and under that have, God Speaks maybe, or under that, I mean, I just don't want to leave it in the team files where it's difficult to find. Let's just put some thought on that and feel free to
Okay.
create a folder structure that's uh, respectful of what we're trying to do. Obviously, it can't go into discourses. Obviously, it can't go to God Speaks. But then I don't want it also sitting in just Teams files, just like something else. This is a good piece of work.
It's all Baba's direction anyway. So there's a Meher Baba journal has got store of information, lots of information for research.
So all that is online on the trust website, is it?
Yes.
Nice, nice, very nice, very nice. Okay, so on that note, let's continue. So I think we did the beyond the we are in the beyond chapter. Let me just uh, check that. Yes, we are in the beyond state of God chapter, and we are going to continue from where we left off on the fifth.
Karthik, if it's not very difficult, can we go through it again so that we have the continuity of what we were reading?
Sure, it's yeah, I think that's fine. We can do that.
Suggestion. I mean, yes.
Sure. So the chapter is under the mischievous chicken. Sorry. I pulled the plug. Apologies.
It's okay. That's Baba's wish. Take it as Baba's wish.
Pull the plug. Where's Adobe? Oh, Adobe's come here. Go here. Can you see it?
Yes.
Yes, partly,
Partly, yes.
Yeah,
not
yeah.
in the center. Okay.
Getting fixed. Better now.
Yes.
Okay. Avatar Meher Baba ki jai. The beyond state of God. Adventures begin in God and they end in God. Adventures start with consciousness and end when the consciousness of God is achieved. All adventures are from unconsciousness to consciousness. In order to understand these 14 adventures of the mischievous chicken, one must go back to the beginningless beginning and begin with the original state of God, which is called the beyond. The beyond is the original sound sleep state of God, full of infinite vacuum. The beyond is boundless space and spacelessness and contains infinity and finiteness, unlimitedness and limits. It is everything and nothing, and it is beyond everything and nothing. All things are contained within the beyond. Second. All things are contained within the beyond. All light and all darkness. All knowledge and all ignorance. All consciousness and all unconsciousness. But in this original state of God, there is neither consciousness nor unconsciousness. The beyond contains in its vacuum infinite consciousness and infinite unconsciousness. But in this original state before the beginning, consciousness is not conscious of itself. This means that God does not know that He is God. Infinity does not know that it is infinite. Consequently, this beyond is the state of God that cannot be explained, cannot be understood, and cannot be experienced. Everything is latent in the beyond. But this all is neither everything nor nothing. In his original state, God is, but the everything in God is not. Nothing is, but this nothing in God is not. God, in his original state, is called Paratpar Parabrahma Paramatma by Vedantists. Dadar Ahura Mast by Zoroastrians, and Vara ul Vara by Sufis. For the sake of understanding, the Ancient One now names the beyond state of God, the ocean. Ocean that is shoreless, bottomless, surfaceless, absolutely calm and still before there was a beginning. This original ocean is infinite and indivisible. And because it is infinite and indivisible, it contains everything. It contains all. But the infinite consciousness does not know that it is infinite consciousness. Infinite consciousness, being infinitely unconscious in this ocean, is not conscious of infinite knowledge, nor conscious of infinite power, nor of infinite bliss. Though this state, this ocean, contains everything, all knowledge, all power, and all bliss, it is the beyond state, meaning unconscious, unaware, and asleep to everything. Poor Paramatma, God, the infinite consciousness, is sound asleep, so deep in sleep that he is beyond himself. This is the is state of God. This is the is state of God. God is, but he is neither conscious nor unconscious of it. Is that beyond ocean? Sorry, in that beyond ocean, there was infinite consciousness and infinite unconsciousness. In that beyond ocean, there was the ocean of everything and the ocean of nothing. And through this ocean of everything, infinite consciousness manifested. And through this ocean of nothing, infinite unconsciousness manifested. Naturally, as soon as these two states of infinitude came into being, they no longer had the sound sleep attribute of the beyond God. However, the beyond God state continued to be as it always was, is, and will be, absolutely and totally immutable and independent. Nevertheless, the states of infinite consciousness, Paramatma, and infinite unconsciousness, Ishwar, came into what is known as the beyond God state. And though infinite consciousness and infinite unconsciousness remain forever contained in the beyond state, where everything is always contained, they have both come out of the beyond state into different realms of consciousness. How did infinite consciousness and infinite unconsciousness come out of the beyond ocean to begin with? It is all because of the whim, the lahar, and the two oceans, the ocean of everything and the ocean of nothing. The beyond contains the ocean of everything and the ocean of nothing. And these are not two separate oceans, but one. It is stated that this way by the it is stated this way by the ancient one so that the intellect can grasp the concept. Everything is everything and nothing is nothing. But they sustain each other and are infinitely interwoven, wave with wave, drop with drop. The ocean of everything and the ocean of nothing were lying still as one in the bosom of the beyond ocean. Then, without reason, without warning, without substance of any kind, a whim arose in the ocean of nothing. That whim gave rise to a question: who am I? And as nothing asked itself that question over and over again, who am I? Who am I? Who am I? Movement began in the ocean of nothing. Nothing is nothing without substance. Therefore, its movements and whims are without consequence. But over ages and ages, that movement in the ocean of nothing created an impact on the ocean of everything. And that ocean of everything slowly awakened. When the ocean of everything was finally awake, it asked itself only one question: who am I? As soon as it asked itself that one question, it gave itself the only answer: I am God. An infinite consciousness was established in the ocean of everything. But the poor ocean of nothing, when it heard everything's question, who am I? It did not know that answer. Thus, infinite unconsciousness was established in the ocean of nothing. Nothing did not know the answer to everything's question, but that impact of the question on nothing was so great that nothing tried to answer it in innumerable ways. Thus, creation arose in the nothing. And the point at which everything's question was heard in the nothing was the Om point, out of which innumerable questions and answers poured into the ocean of nothing. All movements took place in infinite unconsciousness, as infinite consciousness cannot be affected by anything since it knows everything. God's state of infinite consciousness is named Parabrahma Paramatma in Vedanta, Allah in Sufism, and Ezdan in Zoroastrianism. This is the state of the Father. This divine state is of infinite consciousness of Paramatma, conscious God. In this divine state, Nirvikalp, soul is conscious of being God. Paramatma is in the conscious beyond, so God is not conscious of illusion. Paramatma is not conscious of being everything and everyone, for infinite consciousness is beyond everything. God's state of infinite unconsciousness is named Ishwar in Vedanta. Ishwar has three aspects: Brahma, the creator; Vishnu, the preserver; and Mahesh, the dissolver. Thus, all creating of creation, all preserving of creation, and all dissolving of creation occurs within infinite unconsciousness, the domain of Ishwar. In the beginning of time, infinite consciousness was established as the divine state or seat of impersonal God, who had no consciousness of illusion. This seat of God is called Ars-e-Mola, and this divine state remained to be realized, or the seat remained to be filled until infinite consciousness was gained through the medium of infinite unconsciousness. Not only did infinite unconsciousness want to realize infinite consciousness, but infinite consciousness itself wanted to be realized. It was none else but the mischievous chicken who, pulled by that seat in the beginning, journeyed through 14 adventures in unconsciousness to occupy it. It was he who created the aspect of the personal God by realizing himself as none else but God. This is where we had stopped last time. So maybe I'll pause and see if anybody has any questions or points to discuss.
Thanks, Karthik. This clearly throws light and explains many of the charts which are there on God Speaks. The
True.
beyond, and the total enigma of all that. Thank you.
It still is pretty enigmatic, but yes, I agree with you.
Yeah, it is
Right.
enigmatic, but at least we have some path on to understand the gist of God Speaks and charts.
Indeed. So the key thing that I took away is the fact that what we call as Brahma, Vishnu, Mahesh is in infinite unconsciousness.
Yes.
Because it is through infinite unconsciousness that you go to the path of infinite consciousness. And the distinction between everything and nothing is the everything is infinite consciousness and nothing is infinite unconsciousness. So that was the big takeaway from this reading. I hope
This,
that's correct.
but here, as we can see on the screen, one line is bit perplexing for me. But infinite consciousness itself wanted to be realized. So, what do you understand by this?
So
Through the medium of infinite unconsciousness, not only did infinite unconsciousness wanted to realize infinite consciousness, but infinite consciousness itself wanted to be realized.
correct.
So that is the mischievous part of the chicken.
Indeed, and also if you go back to the earlier paras, in one of the sections where infinite consciousness is concerned, it was very easy. It's who am I? And I am God. Over.
I am God. Yes.
But then, yeah, it's only in the infinite unconsciousness that you go through these. You start with home point, go through creation, and then come to the discovery, right?
Yes.
So, in that sense, the intent to realize and the intent to know itself is latent and powerfully present even in infinite unconsciousness.
Right. Yes.
Right? So I think
Yes.
that's the reference here, and the reference is to say that both had the intent. One did it quickly, the other is all of us, right? So that is what it is.
Okay.
Anybody else? Okay, let's continue. To know light as light, darkness is absolutely necessary because without darkness, it is not known that light is light. Consequently, to be conscious of knowledge, one must be conscious of ignorance. And knowledge is that which knows, that is, experiences, that ignorance is ignorance. That knowledge is called Vigyan, and it knows the beginning and the end of everything and everyone, which was nothing. The infinite ocean in the beyond has everything and also nothing. It has infinite energy, prana, and infinite space, akash. The Om point is in everything, from which the beginning of nothing took place as the evolution of everything that was latent in the original ocean. I'll pause here. I think there's a subtle point here. If you recollect, Om point was in the nothing. But what he's saying here, there's a subtle point. The infinite ocean in the beyond has everything and also nothing. Because everything includes nothing. It has infinite energy, prana, and infinite space, akasha. The Om point, hence, is in everything from which the beginning of nothing took place, as the evolution of everything that was latent in the original ocean. I hope that's clear. The ocean, I continue, the ocean has knowledge, but it is unaware that it contains knowledge. That is its original ignorance. When the whim surged, surf formed in the ocean of nothing, and every drop in that ocean began asking, who am I? Who am I? With the advent of this surf, there was friction between space and energy, and a most powerful clash occurred, creating movement which affected the everything. This effect was that every drop of the ocean of everything began asking, who am I? This movement caused ripples in the ocean of everything, and on account of the whim, the evolution of consciousness and unconsciousness simultaneously took place from the Om point. Thus, the two states, infinite consciousness, Paramatma, and infinite unconsciousness, Ishwar, were established. The ocean of beyond God in the beginning was absolutely serene and still without the least movement. The whim, that lahar or hooky, arose in the ocean of nothing, and nothing asked itself, who am I? Who am I? For ages and ages of time. It took aeons and eons for everything to awaken from its sleep. So unimaginably deep and sound was it, until everything awakened fully, infinitely, and asked itself, who am I? And answered, I am God. The states of infinite consciousness and infinite unconsciousness were not established, and creation did not begin. It is of this interim time that I now speak, the ages and ages, the eons after the whim, and before everything awakened fully to tell itself, I am God, therefore knowing itself, and established the states of infinite consciousness and infinite unconsciousness, Paramatma and Ishwar. In this time, before creation began, original fire, Teja, in infinitely finite form, manifested in the ocean of nothing. This fire manifested near the Om point, but it was not the beginning of creation. Creation did not begin until infinite unconsciousness was established in the ocean of nothing. And this original fire manifested before that time. The whim gave rise to this fire, and this infinitely finite original fire gave rise to infinitely finite energy, prana. Energy, even in such incredibly finite form, required space, akasha, to manifest. Simultaneously, space manifested with energy, And instantly there arose conflict between these two. The conflict between space, akasha, and energy, prana, created movement. And over eons of time, this movement in the ocean of nothing, created by the powerful clash between space and energy, awakened the ocean of everything from its oceanic deep sound sleep. After everything awakened and spoke, "Who am I? I am God," infinite consciousness was established, and infinite unconsciousness was established. Once infinite consciousness was established in the ocean of everything, the movements in the ocean of nothing did not affect it, and only infinite unconsciousness, Ishvara, was affected by these movements. And as infinite unconsciousness was affected, Ishvara began to create, preserve, and dissolve.
Karthik, I have one question.
Sure.
Does it mean that infinite consciousness uh, dissolved into infinite consciousness? There is nothing dissolved into everything. Can we infer that?
From where are you getting that inference?
Ishwar began to create, preserve, and dissolve.
So the process of creation, preservation, and dissolution is only within nothing. It's only within infinite unconsciousness.
Okay, okay.
So it's, if you recollect the analogy and the coverage that we saw for preservation, creation, preservation, and dissolution, it is only in the waking state, right? So if you go back to God Speaks, I think chapter 1, right? So it's only in infinite unconsciousness. So there's no impact on infinite consciousness. Is that correct? Any others want to confirm that?
Yes, it looks like that. So it is only the ripple in the unconscious state that leads to all the uh, process. So that is all the activities of Ishvara are in infinite
Unconsciousness.
and moves further till it reaches consciousness, complete consciousness or infinite consciousness. That is why it realizes at the end that I am infinite consciousness or I am God state.
Correct. So if you go back to the chart, I don't know the chart number. So it's the split between the two, and one goes through all of the steps, and the other is already there.
Already there, yes.
Right? So infinite, exactly, infinite God. So from beyond, it just goes straight. And the states of God are only what we are going to. Ashok,
Okay.
is that?
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, cool. I continue. When the question of everything, who am I, was heard in the ocean of nothing, nothing began saying, I am this, I am that.
Hello.
Into the ocean of nothing.
Okay.
You want to say something, Mama?
No, I didn't hear you in between.
Restart from nothing began saying.
Okay, I'll start from the whole para. When the question of everything, who am I, was heard in the ocean of nothing, nothing began saying, I am this, I am that, and creation began to issue forth drop by drop out of the Om point into the ocean of nothing. Now I am confused.
Why?
Why is the question, who am I, coming in everything, but it's heard in the ocean of nothing to create the drops? That question also is in the first question is already answered in everything. Is
Yes.
that correct? Is that wrong?
No, it is just heard in the ocean of nothing. It is not asked here. So everything had this question and it got the answer immediately or instantaneously. But
Mhm.
the reverberations of this question in the ocean of nothing started the creation process.
Ah, okay. Got it. So the question is only one,
Yes,
and the question is only once, but the sound and the reverberations and the creation happens in the nothing of that sound.
yeah.
Brilliant. Super. So let's continue. Movements are what cause things to come out into creation, and nothings go on manifesting ad infinitum in response to movements. And what were movements? Nothing but the false answers that nothing gave to the original question, who am I? The conflict between energy and space was the prime instigator of all these movements. Because of this friction, fire, Teja, issued forth into creation first, and energy as its derivative, then space, ether, then air, then water, and then earth. These are the five elements, tattvas, the substances that constitute life, which manifested in seed form in the mental world's planes, in subtle form in the subtle world's planes, and in gross form in the gross world as universes of suns, stars, moons, and planets. The existence of the illusory things of creation in the mental, subtle, and the gross world depends upon these five elements, tattvas, which are combinations of gases. Hence, the mischievous chicken experienced them as gas, which accompanied him throughout his journeys in evolution and involution until the 13th adventure, when he became mental conscious on the sixth plane. On the sixth plane, he gained that consciousness of pure fire or pure light, and he saw everything in that light. Energy, prana, and space, akasha, clashed before creation and continued to clash after creation, all because of desire, all because of desire. In the time before creation, fire, energy, and space manifested near the Om point. These forces arose out of the whim. But out of that original whim also surged seven major desires, which poured into the ocean of nothing before and after creation. These seven desires pervade the mental world, seed form, the subtle world in subtle form, germination, and the gross world in gross form, action. Mankind knows these desires as lust, anger, greed, hatred, pride, selfishness, and jealousy. And these desires pervade all creation. Consequently, at every stage of life, you'll find this figure 7 has significant meaning because of the pervading seven major desires: lust, anger, greed, hatred, pride, selfishness, and jealousy. There's your 7.
How to remember them? Any formula for that? in that sequence. Okay.
LAG, come up with something out of it. Yeah, go ahead. Sure.
I just wanted to say that lag, lust, anger, greed, it drags us back from the journey. So at least lag I have. Then
Yeah.
HPSJ is a little. Maybe you'll have to take HAPSEZ.
No, but Mama wants the sequence, so it's lag HPSJ.
Lag
Yes.
HPSJ, yes.
That's it. So lust, anger, greed, hatred, pride, selfishness, and jealousy. Okay.
And we can also keep in mind the opposites like love,
Love, yeah.
etc.
I continue. Consequently, at every stage of life, you will find this figure 7 has significant meaning because of the pervading 7 major desires. Energy, which activates movements, has 7 divisions, states. So the movements of creation also have 7 divisions, 7 waves with 7 states of surf foam. The divisions of movements are so subtle, fine, that they are unseen since the movement is exceptionally rapid. Ripples are the repercussions of movements, and because there are 7 divisions in movement, there are 7 divisions in ripples. 7 states of waves with the surf's foam, bubbles. Thus, the purity of the ocean as creation unfolds imperceptibly. With the movement of the ocean of nothing, waves arise and the surf foams, forming bubbles. Every wave has innumerable drops, and every drop has a bubble around it. This bubble is of the drop and nothing but the drop. And because of the bubble, the drop seems separate from the ocean. Bubbles are of 2 kinds, wave bubbles and drop bubbles. The wave bubbles are as the gross universes, and the drop bubbles are as the gross forms in the universes from stone to human.
Okay. Can you just go back to the previous paragraph? There's one thing. Ripples. Ripples are the repercussions of movements, and because of there are 7 divisions in the movement. This is not clear. How do we understand this? So, he has not explained anything of the 7 ripples here. What are they? How are they? And other things. Energy which activates movement has 7 divisions.
From here,
Yes.
Yeah.
So, is there any scientific connection also? Links there? We have to think over that. Maybe.
Yeah, I was also wondering, but I don't know what the thing is. But what I can get at this point is that there is subdivisions within the energy, and those are of seven levels. And I don't know if there is an analogy or a,
is it the wavelength of say? Can we put it across in the broad spectrum of the wavelength from one end to the other? Probably something is there which connects all these things.
probably, yeah.
Okay.
Physics.
Yes.
Yeah.
So physics man is very silent today.
Silent, yeah. Mr. Metaphysics, where are you? Chennai, Bombay? Silence.
Merhaba.
Beyond.
Merhaba.
Okay.
Merhaba.
Okay.
Just landed.
Great. Great. Awesome. MPR or elsewhere?
MPR only.
Good, good, good. Okay, so get all the local news and update us. I have sent a mail for booking for all of us for 24th. Okay? So check if that can get confirmed. Do some snooping, do some sleuthing.
All right.
Cool. More on Mehrabad towards the end. We'll talk about your plans. We'll find out what you're doing. I'll continue. With the movement of the ocean of nothing, waves. I think Mike should mute. With the movement of the ocean of nothing, waves arise and the surf foams, forming bubbles. Every wave has innumerable bubbles. Every wave has innumerable drops, and every drop has a bubble around it. The bubble is of the drop and nothing but the drop, and because of the bubble, the drop seems separate from the ocean. Bubbles are of two kinds, wave bubbles and drop bubbles. The wave bubbles are as the gross universes, and the drop bubbles are as the gross forms in the universes from stone to human. So there is a distinction that's being made between the two, wave and drop. So let's try to see if we understand a little more on that. In the ocean rise infinite waves with numberless bubbles, and every big wave bubble has numberless small wave bubbles, universes. This means that with the rippling in the ocean, innumerable gross worlds were created. Out of these innumerable planets, 7 are nearest to the home point, the very nearest being our planet Earth. This is the reason why God descends on earth as the Christ, prophet, Buddha, Messiah, or Avatar. The whole universe, containing millions and millions of universes, is in the throes of change and continues to evolve. And so, the 7 planets near the creation home point also change and evolve. The greatest opportunity for the development of mind, of heart, of consciousness is on the world nearest to the home point, where spirituality is at its height, involution. Involution occurs only on one planet in the whole universe at any time, and that planet is now Earth. Each drop soul begins and ends its journey in involution here. When the world nearest the home point cools down, spirituality dies. The world just behind it spiritually takes its place in all respects. On account of the waves in the ocean, infinite nothings come out of the ocean of nothing. But in unimaginably limited form. These nothings, Jivatmas, individual drop souls, are the infinite shadows of the everything, God. Now the question arises, how could there be infinite shadows of the one, everything, God? This can be elucidated as follows. Infinite is opposite to finite. Light is opposite to shadow. Yes is opposite to no. One is opposite to innumerable. If you take one, which is D, and light, which is B, they will have their opposites innumerable, and shadow, or innumerable shadows of one light. Interesting. So it's an intertwined set of opposites. So one has an opposite which is innumerable. Light has an opposite which is shadow. But when there is one light, you have obviously innumerable shadows. Very interesting and very nicely put. The justification for the multiplicity of the shadows in the nothing. I continue. If there is anything that is not reality, it must be its opposite. Thus, from one Paramatma, innumerable shadows are born as its opposite. And these shadows are the shadows of shadows. The light, original fire Teja, that came out of God's effulgence, Noor, is the shadow of that effulgence. And the shadows of this shadow are the innumerable shadows. The infinite numbers of suns, moons, and stars are the shadows of the shadow of the light of God. The state of God that
Somebody
exists.
explain the last part. It's a little intriguing. Maybe.
So I don't know how to explain this. Anybody? Mamaji?
No, you can read it once again. It is sinking in to me. Read that once
If
again.
there is anything, I will read it again. If there is anything that is not reality, it must be its opposite. Thus, from one Paramatma, innumerable shadows are born as its opposite. And these shadows are the shadows of shadows. The light, original fire Teja, that came out of God's effulgence is the shadow of that effulgence, and the shadows of this shadow are the innumerable shadows. So it's like the dream of a dream, right? So it's basically what comes out of God itself is illusory, and of that illusory nature is the innumerable shadows that are created. Firstly is a shadow. Firstly is the Noor itself, the effulgence itself is a shadow, and from that came multiple more shadows.
Yeah.
Is that something? Is that the way
Yes,
to understand this?
yeah. That's why if you take light, light can be of different intensity at different levels. So light or the heat of the light or the energy of the light at the source of sun is different from what we perceive here. So if you put this scale ahead, so the sun becomes the light, and then what we experience of the sun in earth is the shadow of sun. So if you stretch this imagination, God is at the pinnacle. So the first shadow is the Tej, and then the shadows of that are other suns and moons and other things. And what we experience in the gross body, or as what we perceive of all these things, is the ultimate shadow, which is the false reality which we are experiencing. Does it make some sense?
Yes, indeed. Well put. Ashok?
Yeah. You can continue.
The state of God that exists in the movement of the ocean is the state of Ishwar, creator, preserver, and dissolver. It is only in movement that the acts of creation, preservation, and dissolution can unfold. Due to this movement, innumerable waves and ripples happened in the ocean of nothing. whereby wave bubbles, universes and gross worlds, and drop bubbles, forms from stone to human, arose. Since energy has seven states and energy activates movements, so movement and its ripples, repercussions of movement, have seven states of stir. I'd like to pause and ask a question which I was not able to formulate when the first distinction was made. How do we distinguish a wave bubble from a drop bubble? Even the universes and the gross worlds are manifested from the nothing,
Yes.
and the drop bubbles also are from the nothing. So, why is there a distinction between the universes and gross worlds and the forms from stone to human? Because the stones are also part of the gross world universes, isn't it?
Yes.
So I'm not able to
No,
class.
if you uh, partly understood by me is the way if you take one drop, put them together as a few bubbles together, it becomes a cluster of bubbles. And if you put so many clusters together, it becomes one unit of say the bubble together. So like that, you can create bubbles into lot of clusters which become a minor wave. And if you put lot of, you can imagine on the surface of the ocean, when you are standing on the shore, small say the wave comes and hits you, but before that it comes, there is a large wave which is bringing these small waves together. And then ultimately they become small, and some water drop hits you on your feet. So if you imagine like that, the waves, that is what it is referred to as wave bubble and drop bubble. Probably that is how I understood that. So the major waves are the lot of different, say, suns and moons and the cosmos, so many aspects of the cosmos and all that. And ultimately, the smaller cluster of bubble is the Earth, and in this cluster, all the stones, all the evolutionary process are individual drops and like that. So we may have to imagine like that. Probably that is the answer.
Good attempt, not
Yes,
entirely convincing, but very good
yes,
start.
yes.
Are there stones and forms in other universes? Are they
Probably.
also just so they are also drop bubbles?
Yes, because if you take the surface of Mars, what we have seen, it looks like a sand dune or let's say mountainous thing with water and dust and soil-like things and all that. So each may be a drop soil there, evolving or say drop soul.
They're just unlucky they're not on Earth. That's it.
Yes, moon also has same almost similar surface to Earth. So there may be a lot of stones there and also dust, soil, everything.
Hmm. So at
Deva
what
Baba, I
point?
think that
Yeah, Kama.
Yes.
Deva Baba, I think what Doc Mama said was very correct. It's a great analogy. The understanding I got was that the wave basically consists of a lot of drops, basically water drops. So he's right. So many water drops become a wave. So it's just a subset of a subset, just like in the beginning, because there is no difference between Paramatma state 2 and Paratpar Parabrahma state 1. The difference is one is aspectless, state 1, and Paramatma is with aspects. Only after the Paramatma has the whim, which is part of the false nothing, the nothingness of the nothing, which is latent within the everything. So everything that happens from the point of the Om point or from the whim is part of the illusion, grand illusion. So he's right in a way that a wave can be considered as many different drops of bubbles and so on and so forth. So the even consciousness, if you read God Speaks, the supplement for 2, 3, the state one and state two, you'll come to know that as soon as Paramatma becomes substates, state one, state two, state 2A, state 2B, and then ultimately state 2C after evolution, reincarnation, evolution. All these are part of the divine dream. Consciousness, the whim, infinite consciousness, infinite unconsciousness. So it's just a amusement game for God to recover his divinity, what he call as from unconscious divinity to conscious divinity. So there is a paradox there. Paramatma means infinite existence, which is real everything. Now, why does real everything want to go through who am I? So it's only a dream.
Super.
Yes, yes. So he goes to metaphysics level from my understanding. Yes, thank you.
Correct. Okay. So 7 states of stir. Now let's continue. 6 states of the stir in the ocean created a bubble of energy around each drop. But the stir, movements, or a whirl, and the bubble are so subtle and the movement is so exceptionally rapid that both are absolutely unseen. The seventh state of movement created the bubbles that are seen. These bubbles are the gross forms of evolution. In the first 6 states of the movement, in the 2 mental planes and 4 subtle planes, the individual drop soul has a covering bubble around it of mind and energy. However, in the seventh state of movement, the drop's covering changes and it becomes a bubble of mind, energy, and gross form. This is Jiva. Every drop is the ocean itself, but because of the bubble, it thinks that it is only a tiny drop. The creation of the gross bubbles is the gross continuation and accentuation of the original friction between energy and space. For space is now in gross form and energy is expressed in form. Consequently, the conflict between energy and space is at its height in the gross world. This is seen as the constant explosion. Somebody needs to mute their mic. This is seen as the constant explosion of novae, the constant evolving of planets in the throes of change. What does the word novae mean? Anybody? Something to do with planets and. Okay. Some drop souls remain latent in the 6 states of the oceanic stir. They remain stationary in the mental or subtle planes with only bubbles of mind or bubbles of energy. Such drop souls with only bubbles of mind are called archangels and they exist in the mental world. Drop souls with only bubbles of energy are called angels and they exist in the 3rd subtle plane. Archangels have a mental body but no gross form. They have mental consciousness without sanskaras. Angels have a subtle body but no gross form. They have subtle consciousness without sanskaras. All other drop bubbles which come out of the nothing pass into the seventh state of movement, the gross world, to journey through evolution, reincarnation, and involution. This journey has a purpose. It ends in an answer. The purpose is to attain everything, and the answer is I am God. Two, everything's question, who am I? Movement in the ocean gave rise to infinite numbers of universes and creatures as it manifested in the mental world in seed form, pure mind, in the subtle world in subtle form, pure energy, and in the gross world in gross form, pure matter. But all the things and beings which were born out of movement, the original stir, take eons and eons to assume gross form as they create themselves through all seven stages of evolution.
We'll pause here. I'll just give you the meaning of Nove. Nove is the
Sure.
plural of nova, and it means a star showing a sudden large increase in brightness and then slowly returning to its original state after a few months. I repeat, nova is the plural of nova, uh, noun, a star showing a sudden large increase in brightness and then slowly returning to its original state over a few months.
Many thanks for that input.
So this is like Jay Baba, this is like what you call a supernova. So even our planet Earth and the solar system, they go through this process. Different stars, which are basically suns, which have different masses, after they exhaust their hydrogen completely, they convert into what we call as a red star, sometimes a black hole or a dwarf star. And stars which are massive, that is 100 times the mass of our sun, they have, see, we are very lucky. Our solar system will last for 10 billion years. 5 billion years is almost gone. So we have another 5 billion years. So after the hydrogen is exhausted through nuclear fusion, it will expand and eat up the earth and so on. And I think it will become a red star or something like that. A supernova is basically where a huge star with 100 times the mass of our sun explodes, basically. And that is where all these different elements, like the elements in the periodic table with higher atomic number, like diamonds and gold, all that, they form in supernova. And then the supernova are in star heat and dust, and then slowly they cool down and become solar systems. So there are many processes. I think if you watch a National Geographic, you'll get to know that. So nova is like a subset of a supernova. Supernova is a huge explosion. As Ashok just said, that nova is something which a single star, it kind of brightens up and then again goes back to its original light or something like that. Jai Baba.
Jai Baba. Thank you, Ashok. Thank you, Kama.
Yes, to put it briefly, cosmic explosion and cooling down, alternating, are happening now and then.
Correct. But all the things, I continue, but all the things and beings which were born out of movement, the original stir, take aeons and aeons to assume gross form as they create themselves through all stages of evolution. Stones, metal, vegetation, worms, reptiles, fish, birds, animals, and human beings have not created themselves suddenly. Creation is for this purpose, the development of consciousness, and for the development of higher consciousness. Intelligence exists illusion, Maya. which is the necessary medium for this purpose. I'll read this again. And for the development of higher consciousness, intelligence, exists illusion, Maya, which is the necessary medium for this purpose. For the sake of this pure infinite intelligence, infinite thought, all the 7 stages of evolution and involution have come into being. When this intelligence is attained, all of creation is known as illusion, as nothing. I'll pause here because we start the next section after Beyond Beyond.
Yes.
The others have been unusually quiet. Any questions, any thoughts, any reactions? This has been very revealing or revelatory, as they say. I really liked this section.
We echo that, Karthik, but we are at the moment at the half from the 14 stages. We are just on the 7th.
Indeed.
No, if you say juxtapose this whole process happening from who am I, some sort of say realize that we are speck of a speck of a speck in this whole process. So don't feel great about ourselves. That's what we have to understand.
Yes.
Thanks
Yes.
for the knock on the ego. Accepted.
Yes.
Okay. So we'll continue. The next section is beginning of creation and development of consciousness. Because of the movement, stir in the ocean of nothing, creation began from the home point, and numberless drops started coming out as nothing. All this happened in the beyond ocean, in which the oceans of everything and nothing are contained. The beyond ocean is infinite and indivisible, and there is nothing beyond it or outside of it. But the divisions of everything and nothing, though illusory, are essential to understanding the beginning. God is indivisible, infinite, and boundless. Nothing exists beside him. God is eternal and immutable. So, nothing ever happens. All journeys, all adventures, all happenings are dreams, for nothing has ever happened. Nothing happens now, and nothing will ever happen. Only God is. This God is state is his perennial and everlasting state. But the same God, to gain consciousness from his state of unconsciousness in the beyond, must pass through the journeys of evolution and involution and experience the different states of consciousness. To grasp the meaning of these different states of consciousness, divisions are essential, but they are in the realm of illusion. The journey of the first soul was a journey of 14 adventures through illusion, the interim between infinite consciousness and infinite unconsciousness. Each of the 14 states of evolution and involution represents the development of consciousness in illusion. The interim between the unconscious and the conscious states of God. In the beginning, the soul has neither a gross form, a subtle form, nor a mental form, because only gross, subtle, and mental sanskaras give birth to gross, subtle, and mental bodies. And because of these three bodies, gross, subtle, and mental universes exist. The first thought, who am I, created the first sanskara. And to find the answer to this first question, the drop soul gathered innumerable sanskaras. Sanskaras by nature give rise to thoughts and desires, which give rise to movements, actions, and movements give rise to other impressions. Because of this interdependent reaction, everything in creation unfolds and infolds. Thus, in the beginning, the first soul had no consciousness of gross, subtle, and mental forms, and no consciousness even of itself. Because of the rippling stir in the ocean from the force of the whim, chicken's curiosity, the first soul derived innumerable finite sanskaras. Consequently, because of these sanskaras, the soul took itself to be separate from itself, God. This separation was only imaginary. The drop is never separate from the ocean, and this separation itself is imagination. Imagination creates sanskaras, impressions of separation which cause division, and sanskaras create movements which create mental, subtle, and gross bodies. These mental, subtle, and gross bodies, in turn, sustain imagination. So, altogether, the wheel of imagination goes on turning, acting as the medium for the total development and complete evolution and involution of consciousness from atom to stone to man into energy and then into mind. Okay, I'll pause again here. Quite honestly, just a thought came to my mind. I'm very impatient with poetry. So if not for this group and doing this in this group form, I cannot imagine reading this. Okay, but I just love this book. Actually, it's very nice, very powerful and insightful. So we should thank Ravi for thinking of this, and I should thank all of you for being part of this journey, because I somehow I'm a prose guy. I don't like poetry, but this is very nice. That's just a personal observation. So before we go to the gas state, any questions, any thoughts? Okay, the gas state. The first Jivatma had to pass through.
Just a moment.
Yeah.
Can we
Sure.
take up another chapter or okay? Just a thought about Ashok's presentation and
Sure.
the ripple after that in me, as all of us, as in all of us. So I have some broad sketch which has come to my mind, which I will just put it in words in a few minutes.
Sure. So let's pause here then. What you're suggesting is
Yes.
we discuss a little bit about what Ashok did last week. Perfect.
Yes,
Great.
yes,
So
yes.
we'll wrap up at this point, and then we can obviously continue from gas state tomorrow.
Yes. Say, so this evolution, then involution, and then ultimately ending in realization. That's what we are understood. So evolution goes on from different forms, say from stone onwards till the human form. That is one great stage where we all understand, as per the knowledge available, that consciousness is totally mature, even though it may not be expressible in all human beings at the same level, but capability of consciousness is maximum or reach the ultimate in the human form. So from human form, it is only the flowering of consciousness by repeated recycle in the human form, that is reincarnation. So this mechanically, if you follow this, that formula of 1,84,000 will end this cycle, repeated cycles. But those who go beyond this, they go into the involution process. And in the involution process, we have 7 stages, and then seventh phase, we go into sort of nothingness. That's what the way I put it. That nothingness is nothingness of your gross form, your subtle form, your mental form, all your sanskaras, everything is lost. That is the nothingness. And in this process of nothingness, what you gain is realization. So that is what we have to drop all the baggages, and then you realize that is realization in the after the 7th plane or at the end of the 7th plane. And what happens after the 7th plane? The journey is ending at the 7th plane. That is known as the first journey. And there are 3 other journeys beyond this, which need not be taken or which is never taken by all the drop souls. So I will come to that. Each drop soul can drop out of this process when and how. So there we get the mukti and other things. So the second and third journeys lead to the end of the third journey is the Sadguru. The second is in between Mazub and other states. The end of the third journey leads you to the fourth journey, that is the identification or dissolution into the God state, but retaining the individual nature of the drop soul. That is one aspect which is intriguing and then needs a lot more to understand. That is in the chart also it is mentioned, retaining the individuality of the drop soul. So that is one aspect which is I am unable to say fathom or understand more. So in this process, what I have told, the ordinary mukti is for all of us if we wish, and that is before involution. That is what we have to understand. It is only in the human form, not going to the involution phase, who can get ordinary mukti, and the requirements to get that are one aspect Vedanta has said as God fearing, the other one is love for the God. So the flowering of love to the pinnacle will take you to mukti, and this is the end of the journey in one sense, that we are not going to repeat this cycle of birth and death. So that is the achievement, and the requirement is God fearing and love for God. And then the process can be achieved only when you have the name of the God or the memory of God at the last breath in this human form. So these are the 3 criteria which we'll have to remember for achieving ordinary mukti. One is God fearing, the other one is loving God and taking the name of the God at the last breath. So with this, you get the ordinary mukti, and this gives you, what is the benefit of this is that you are not going to be reborn. So you are going out of this cycle of birth and death. So this is not God realization, but it is one way of getting out of this cycle. So the next level is those who go through the planes of involution, first, second, third, fourth, fifth, and sixth. So which we have studied quite detailed. So the end of the cycle of the movement in the involutionary process, they go to two stages, that is nirvana and nirvikalpa. So that is the phase of God realization. That is the achievement of having done all this process of evolution and involution, and that is the end of the first cycle. Those who come to this stage of either nirvana or nirvikalpa, they do not get back into the cycle of life once again, but they are all God realized. That is the difference between ordinary mukti and nirvikalpa, end of the cycle at nirvikalpa. But there are a few, we know that 56 souls do not end their cycle there itself or life there itself. They go beyond in the same life. It is not a recycled life. So those who achieve nirvikalpa further achieve other states, like all these stages, what we have understood, like Sahaja Samadhi, Mazub state, Sahaja Samadhi, or say Paramahamsa state. So this is not for everyone in that 56 group. Some will achieve some stage and then they end their cycle there. But those who go through this, a few are very, very minuscule. They go to the Sadguru state. So they go and then they have a function and then execute that function and end their life there. And that is the end of their total cycling. So what I understand is once you cross the seventh plane, there is no more cycle of birth and rebirth. So the same soul which has become to the level of nirvikalpa, a few of them can go further. And that is the 56 people in that area, a few will go further, and the ultimate step that we can achieve is the Sadguru state. And this, you will have to juxtapose this with the avatar. So the avatar went through this process, and then he is coming back and giving us all the scope to understand all these things and enlightenment. So avatar, we should not confuse with this process. Avatar has already gone through all this cycle and comes back every time 700 to 1400 years to the benefit of the other drop souls. So this is what I have understood. That means millions and trillions are there in the human, say, phase, and they go through 184,000 cycles minimum to get out of this cycle. To get out of this cycle, they need not go to nirvikalpa at all. So they may get ordinary mukti. Very few from among them who struggle, there's a known as the aspirants. So they go through the involutionary process, and at the end of the involutionary process, they get nirvana and nirvikalpa. And from then, very few once again from that group, they will go through the second and third journey and end at Sadguru. That is the last stage achievable for anyone. So that is the pinnacle. And after you drop the body as a Sadguru, you immerse yourself into the God state, but retaining the individuality. That is still not clearly understood by me. Jai Baba, this is one sequence I thought is important for all of us to understand. And if there are any, say, confusions, queries on this, we need to talk together and create a scheme for our understanding. Jai Baba.
Jai Baba, Mamaji, well put.
That was like sections of God speaks where it just goes over your head, right?
Yes.
That was like 5 minutes of condensed God speaks like that. But I totally agree with all the stuff you said. Maybe a to do for us is to try to visually or verbally represent this, right? So, like you suggested, these are well put verbally, but then
Yes.
we need to be able to visualize this for better understanding and better internalization. So maybe
I
that's
have a
something
scheme in
down.
mind, but I don't know how to work out that. We will try. I will
So
explore
that's
that
a
possibility.
face-to-face project in Mehrabad, I think.
I just wanted
Okay.
to add
Any
that
confusions in what I told, or this understanding is okay for all of us to go ahead?
Jai Baba, I
Yes,
think Doc
Rama.
Mama, you got it. I think you have done it. Yeah, I think I'm impressed that you have got it. So my short note here is basically that all the drop souls which don't all the drop souls which don't attain nirvana or nirvikalpa samadhi will definitely attain moksha or
Yes,
ordinary mukti.
yes,
So the important thing is what should be the first statement. So I think the confusion was, is there a difference between nirvana, which is before death, and ordinary mukti or moksha after death?
yeah,
Technically, at the end, both drop souls which have nirvana and those drop souls which have attained moksha are going to experience bliss. The
yes,
process is different. As Baba said, God fearing souls after death will attain moksha. And I think when you read the My Wish, when Baba says that try to remember me at least once every day so that at the end of your journey, you, if you remember me, you will come to me. So it's a subtle way of saying that you can attain moksha. But I'm not
Yeah.
sure about that because these things we don't know how it works. Similarly to who becomes Sadguru, who becomes part of the 56 God realized souls. So one can be assured that every drop soul is going to attain moksha or ordinary mukti. I think the terminology confusion was mukti is liberation, and liberation can be in the form of moksha or ordinary mukti after death, or liberation can be in the form of nirvana, nirvikalpa samadhi, or sahaja samadhi. I think that needs to be clearly understood and not to confuse, union. The word union has a very subtle meaning, but the basic purpose is manonash, right? Once you have manonash, which is definitely nirvana, that is why Baba said nirvana as goal, but nirvikalpa samadhi is the goal. So every human being should try to attain godhood, which is God realization or self realization. But because of the divine theme, not every drop soul will attain godhood. But the point is, if we try to focus on Nirvikalpa Samadhi, which is I am God or God realization or self realization, at least you might get nirvana and experience bliss. Otherwise, the last state is nirvana, moksha or ordinary mukti, which is going to happen to every drop soul if they don't attain the before death states, nirvana, nirvikalpa samadhi. Jai Baba.
Jai Baba, Jai Baba. Any other inputs from others? Soma
Awesome.
is
I think,
silent.
yeah, so by silent.
I'm listening to everything. It's really very well put by Mama Ji and expert comments by Kama. Great session.
Great session indeed. So on that note, we'll wrap up. I'm traveling tonight, but I hope to be able to open the call and join tomorrow. So we will.
Tomorrow I will not be joining because I have some other say family function to attend.
Okay.
So I'll not be able to join. So I would
Okay.
like to love to see the recording of that later.
Sure. I will share that. I'll put it up.
Rama post some nice photos from Meherabad. We'll have a look as well.
Mama
Okay,
is very secretive and also possessive about Meherabad visits.
everything happens in the last minute as per Baba's wish. You know.
Yes, Baba's wish. Yes.
Okay,
Sai
great.
Baba,
So
nice
we'll
session.
wrap up. Have a great Saturday, and we'll catch up later tomorrow. Sunil, you have also been silent. If you're open later today, we can connect on tech.
Yes, I was thinking.
I'll
about
text you one-on-one. I'll
Yeah,
text you one-on-one.
I may also want to join.
Sure, of course. Yeah, I will text both of you.
Okay.
Jai Baba.
Hey, Baba.
Jai
Yeah,
Baba. Jai Baba.